Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello listeners and welcome to episode 8 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Leslie Spellman and today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Jo Middleton. Jo was a client of mine at the Clutter Fairy, I think 5 years ago now. I think it's really important we get perspectives on decluttering from people who have had clutter and disorganisation in their lives and have turned a corner. And I know Jo will be the perfect person to talk to all about her experience, both as a client of the Clutter Fairy and all her work independently in the years since. Welcome Jo, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Hi Leslie.
So do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about your family life?
Yeah, hi. I live in quite a nice Edwardian semi with my husband and 2 children, and we run a dental practice together. The house is great. I'm really lucky. It's quite a big house. The downside of that is spare rooms and clutter that built up, and when I say built up, you probably couldn't even get into 2 of the rooms. There was so much stuff in it. So hence I called the Clutter Fairy, and that's where my life took a turn for the better.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So what was it that made you pick up the phone to ask for help?
Well, to be honest, we moved into the house when Finn was 1, Jacob was 4, and you know it's like when you move house, you just leave boxes and you keep thinking, I'm going to go through them. And then we waited as ever, and then eventually Finn starts school, and I thought, right, this is it, I'm going to get on top of it myself. But unfortunately, Finn fell very poorly with cancer and was on treatment for quite some time. And then once he finished the treatment, the mess is still there, and it was 10 times worse because we'd done nothing. We just left it. It wasn't a priority. And I felt that that was the time that I needed to get on top of the house, because having got Finn through the illness, I felt that every time I was at home I was stressed, every time I walked into a room, and you can imagine we had people wanting to come and see us and we couldn't put them up. It was just horrendous. There was just boxes from moving in still sitting in all the different rooms. So I heard about the Clutter Fairy, and she was a fairy that arrived on my door. And it was just, honestly, It was great.
Oh, it's obviously it's so tough what you went through, but it must have been really, really difficult for you to pick up the phone and ask for help after everything that you'd gone through.
I think asking for help, it is difficult, but I suppose I was in the place where I was that desperate. I thought I really do need this help. I thought I was going to be embarrassed more than anything, because when you invite somebody into your home and they can see the clutter you've hoarded and not done, you worry what you're going to find. Do you think people must think, crikey, where's all this come from? Did he not throw anything away? And I probably didn't throw anything away, because you're always frightened of throwing away stuff, aren't you, in case you need it again? And that was my biggest thing. Well, I might need it. And I kept it because I might need it. And if I'm honest, I'd probably needed it once in 10 years and I still had it, so.
I think that's it. I think you picked up on a couple of the emotions that most clients before they pick up the phone feel, so feeling guilty about how they've got to that point. And obviously for you, then there's a very, very specific reason for that, and everybody would completely understand, but still I'm sure you probably felt guilty at the time. You're embarrassed about the state of the house and worried about somebody coming in and judging you. And I think also quite apprehensive about the process as well, and as if somebody's going to come in and just make you throw all your things away, and if that's not necessarily what you want to happen. So I think guilt, embarrassment and apprehension are definitely the 3 emotions that I see most from my clients when I first go in and meet them for the first time. So you made that call to the Clutter Fairy, how did it make you feel, just when you just made that initial call and made that decision? It's almost getting to that point, isn't it? And making that decision is the hardest hurdle sometimes.
Yeah, I think it is. I think what helped was the encouragement from my husband, because he could see how stressed I was getting about the house. And if I'm honest, we were fighting over silly things, because when your house is a mess, you literally can't see the wood for the trees. And so when the kids come in and make the normal kind of mess on top of the hoardy kind of mess, it just makes everything look 10 times worse. So having his support and him saying, you've done the right thing, that was great. And it did feel like a weight then. I thought, finally, someone's going to come in and help me do this, because it was just too mammoth a task for me to face. I just kept shutting the door literally, and just going, I can't face it.
Because it's just so overwhelming, isn't it?
It is overwhelming, yeah. You don't know where to start. You literally, when you open a room and you've got piles of stuff and boxes, and you don't want to throw everything away, do you? But what I found was you'd move it from corner to corner, and then you'd make more of a mess because you'd empty a box and then you still didn't know what to do with the stuff, and you go, oh. It's
hard to keep motivated, particularly if you've got a lot of rooms that you've got to tackle all at once. And so it's a really tricky, overwhelming time. And, you know, sometimes if you can get somebody in that just takes the kind of thinking away from it a little bit, obviously you've got to make all the decisions yourself, but the process is thought about for you and you're guided through that process.
It's boring on your own as well, though. It's really boring. And you weren't boring, Leslie. You came in and we had a laugh the whole time. You know, and that did make it easier. I mean, you did laugh at some of the stuff you found in my house. You know, nothing rude. It was always, you know, and that kind of made it easy. And you were great at saying, really, Jo? Do you really need this? You know, and the one thing, and you might laugh, is that I couldn't get rid of my flags, could I?
No, you couldn't get rid of those flags. I couldn't get rid of the flags
because there's always a party that needs a flag, Mexican or English, whatever it is. But we found a home for the flags because at the time I think they were just in carrier bags, and I don't know, it's not many people keep as many flags as I do.
I know, but everyone's got their thing, and that's what makes you tick, you know. And those because you know, of course, I'm not a big party thrower like you are, Jo, and I don't need loads of flags. But that's not to say that you don't. So we got started. I turned up on the doorstep with my non-wings and non-tutu. Sadly, not much of a fairy. So how was the process? Was it like you were expecting it to be, or was it worse, better? You said that you enjoyed the process.
Yeah, no, it was much better. It was much better because it was fun, and you came in and you were so organised compared to my disorganisation. You kind of knew. You said, right, this is what we're going to do. And so we kind of had a coffee, talked through it. This is what I'm going to do. You came with your magic fold-up baskets. And that was great, you know, putting stuff in baskets. And so I didn't have to make a decision straight away as to throw it, bin it. It was a case of, right, Jo, that really does not belong in this room. You know, I can't even remember of an example now. But you'd put it in the basket, go, that should be in the boys' bedroom, or that should be here. So it was finding the right home for that item, or equally putting it in a box to say, should we leave that for a bit and decide whether you really need it? So
I know, and I think sometimes it can just, for some people, it's not necessarily about having somebody to guide them. Sometimes just having somebody there that is encouraging to make a decision at that moment in time can be quite empowering as well. So quite often when I'm working with people, I don't really need to do a lot other than be there, you know, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's just about, you know, allowing that person to be empowered to make those decisions on their own. I think the organisational stuff is important, obviously, because we need to create a system. It's obviously got into a state because the systems are not there and there's not everything in its place and a place for everything. I've got that the wrong way around. That's my mantra. Yeah. I've got it the wrong way around. That's not good. It was as you expected, and the organisational thing was really what made it count for you.
Yeah, I think just being able to talk it through with somebody, and I think you organised things that I didn't realise needed organising. We went through everything from paperwork to clothes to everything. And I mean, I obviously had a room which was a craft room because I've always done a lot of stuff with my kids. And like I said, we're lucky we had that spare room. It was a bedroom as well for guests, but you'd be hard pushed to find any space for the guests to get in it. And that stressed me out because my family live in Ireland. And when you're having people to stay, it becomes a trauma getting a room ready for them. And I felt like I was absolutely, every time somebody came, all I was doing was bagging stuff up and throwing it into a different cupboard or a different room. I mean, my office was horrendous. It just had everything in it. So it was like, I can remember going through daft things like the ribbons, the threads, all those kind of things, and deciding, did I need that 2 centimetre thread any longer? And it sounds petty, but getting the right organisation for everything was fantastic.
I think that's the thing. Sometimes you've literally got to leave no stone unturned, and every single thing in your house has got to be looked at some point. And you know, you would never do that on your own because it can be quite tedious unless you're guided in a certain way to do that. So, what did you like best about the process?
I actually like the fact that I like how I felt after it. So we didn't do it. So yes, it seems like a mammoth task, but what we did, Leslie, and what was great was you came in and you said, I'm not coming in for like 6 days to do this. We're going to spend a couple of days and we'll do this area. and then you went away, and then you came back and we did another area. So gradually we went through it. So it wasn't massively overwhelming. It wasn't the whole house. So then after like each room we'd done, I just felt like a huge weight, and I felt like, great, I know where to put everything now. And I think knowing that room was done, it was one less off, it was ticked off the list, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what I've actually got before and after pictures of your craft room, I think, because it was, and your spare room, I think, so I'll post those on the show notes as well so that people can see the transformation. I know you've changed those rooms quite significantly since, haven't you, and decorated them, but they do look great, and so I think it's worth putting that on so the listeners can see that.
Definitely.
So it's about 5 years since we worked together. We've still stayed friends, which is great, and I always see your name popping up on all these Facebook selling sites. I'm like, that's my girl, she's still decluttering to her heart's content. So decluttering's still going on, and it's still part of your life now.
So much so that so when you came in and we went through my kitchen and we did everything, that when I actually eventually decided to get a new kitchen put in, it was like I remembered everything you said, and I had the kitchen designed around our organisation that you'd instilled. So straight away now the kitchen is organised, and it's always organised. Now don't get me wrong, there are days when I say, right, today's the day I'm going to clear out that Tupperware cupboard, because really there are 25 lids and 6 boxes or 25 boxes and 6 lids. So I still do that. No one's perfect, and I'd love my kids to put everything away where it should go, but I still find things all over the house. It's just that I now can say to them, that doesn't live there. You know where it lives. Go and put it in that box, or go and put it in that room.
And it takes some training. It takes training for yourself. It takes training for your kids. Certainly kids. So often they're told just go and tidy your room, and they don't know where things go because things have not got a specific home, and so that's always quite difficult.
But it takes me less time to tidy the rooms if I've got fed up of waiting for them to do it, or any room really, because if I say do it and they don't, everything has its home. Before I used to be looking for nooks and crannies to shove things in, whereas now I just open the cupboard and go, right, that's in there, that's in that little box.
So the tidy up is so much simpler. Yeah, exactly. So that's all about the Clutter Fairy. So my new venture, the Declutter Hub, is all about motivating, educating and supporting people to declutter and organise their homes more independently online. So they're not going to get a one-to-one service like you did. It's completely different. So how do you think that will work? Do you think it can take the place of having someone one-to-one in your home?
Well, I think if you've got these courses that are written down, they're going to be in huge detail, it's going to make a massive difference to somebody, because, again, they can read the course and I'm sure it's going to break down exactly where they need to start. I was just too overwhelmed. So I think if you've got a step-by-step guide for every single room in the house, it would be brilliant. Like I said about the kitchen, we've all got Tupperware shoved all over the place, and it would be great to have somebody say, right, do this. And we did the spices. And then also it's less overwhelming because you can just spend an afternoon and say, right, I'm going to do the Tupperware this afternoon. And I think if you can go online and see that and you're talking somebody through, I think it'd be fantastic.
I think that's it. So some of the things that you've mentioned, they'll go into the courses. So talking about the sort of 2 centimetre lengths of ribbons that you talked about, that will be in a course somewhere because that's our experience, mine and Ingrid's experience, and we'll bring that to the courses. So what we don't aim to do is to just say, right, 15 minutes, go and declutter a drawer and ask yourself these questions and throw it out. It's going to go into so much more detail than that, and the psychological aspects of it and so on. So it's much more than what's been out there before, really, and been no stone unturned. So, yeah, and it's about, I think it's really important that people have got accountability as well. So, just being part of a big community, is really going to help people to keep motivated. That's important. I mean, you've managed to do that on your own, but you still do, you follow my Facebook page.
I was going to say, I do see that.
Yeah. So it does, you need something, don't you, to just keep you on track and to give you little ideas, because we're not all perfect, are we? Well, no, I'm definitely not perfect. I don't even know. Not perfect
as my husband, husband.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think if you're in part of a community as well, though, everybody learns from everybody else, and I think it's the fact that you feel like you're so messy. And when I go to other people's houses, or prior Clutter Fairy, I used to walk in and think, right, they've got 3 kids, full-time job, their house is immaculate. Are they OCD, or am I just really messy? Am I just awful at this? So I think other people must feel like that as well. So if there's other people on a forum and they're saying, look, I'm working, I'm doing this, how do I keep this clean? It's getting little hints and tips, so following your courses, and you won't feel quite so alone, I suppose. And also, people must be swapping hints. I'm sure you'll learn from people that go...
Exactly.
And mistakes. I mean, we've all made mistakes as well. Like when I'm tidying up, I think, I thought that was a great idea, and then I realised it wasn't, so...
Exactly. So just to sort of go through what we're going to have a Facebook group that's a free Facebook group, and then within the members area we've got a private community where people can really go into a lot more detail. Some people would like it to be private, don't want to go public with their decluttering journey for obvious reasons, but I think there's going to be lots of motivational chat from other people. There's going to be lots of inspirational hints and tips, hopefully from Ingrid and I, but I think there's going to be a community of people that are going to be chatting amongst themselves, unburdening things, when things go wrong, when things go right, and it's important to be there. Is there anything else you think will be interesting to our listeners before we finish today, Jo?
I think the forum's going to be a big thing for you, really, if you can get people talking. Oh, you've caught me now, Leslie. I'm just trying to think. It just sounds so perfect. I'm going to be subscribing myself.
Well, okay, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Jo, for coming in to share your experience with us. I think it's really, really important to me that our listeners hear it from the horse's mouth and not just from me and Ingrid saying, oh, this is amazing. I think, whether you do it on your own or whether you do it with a, this can be a friend. I think it's a really important thing for people's well-being, for people, people want to be proud of their home and want to enjoy the home. And we spend a lot of time in our homes, and it needs to be a place that you feel comfortable, that you want to raise your family in, that you're not embarrassed about.
I think that's it. I just wanted to be able to open the front door and not be panicking every time that it was going to look... I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind it looking lived in. I just didn't want all the extra clutter around the place. But I have to say, I felt you coming into me, it was like having a life coach. It was a massive weight off my shoulders, not just tidying the house, but it was a whole experience of me becoming more organised. It meant once I went back to work in the business, we were more organised there. The paperwork we're on the ball with. It was a massive, to say it was a life-changing experience, I know it sounds a bit dramatic, but at that time, it actually was, because Finn had been so poorly that when you stepped in, you were like my little lifesaver. And Finn was sick for like 4 years, and it was a lot of time to spend in the house with a little boy who's brilliant now, doing really, really well. But yeah, you were my guardian angel at that time, I think, coming in and sorting it all out for me. So thank you.
That's so nice to hear. Thank you so much, Jo. So that's it for today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Do come and follow us on social media, and if you don't want to miss an episode, subscribe to our podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.